Hey guys, what's up? What's poppin'? Today we're going to be making some spiced persimmon cake from Claire Saffitz's Dessert Person cookbook. So here are just the ingredients. I've got some pecans, some hachia persimmons, as well as some fuyu persimmons, some baking soda, flour, 5 spice powders, salt, baking powder, sugar. I've got avocado oil, some eggs, an orange for orange zest, and orange juice, and some vanilla extract. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is toast my pecans. You could use walnuts here too if you wanted to, but I just don't really like walnuts, so I'm just using pecans. And I just got the pre-chopped one from the grocery store just to make it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to throw those in the oven for a couple of minutes until they're nice and toasty. And we can just pour those into a bowl for now because we'll be mixing it into the batter later, so we can just set it aside. So we're going to get started with making the persimmon puree. And I just wanted to show you your hachia persimmons should be really soft. They should be like jello. So if you need to let it ripen for 5 days, go ahead and do that because it really makes a difference with the taste. Whereas your fuyu persimmons, which are for the decoration on top, those should be hard. So those are the difference between those two. So to get started with the persimmon puree, I'm just going to cut my hachia persimmons in half through the stem, and then I'm going to slice out that whitish core. And honestly, the persimmon should be really soft, so you could kind of do this with your hands if you wanted to. And then after you take the core out, you want to go ahead and scoop out the orange interior just with a spoon. And then transfer it to the blender, and that's where we're gonna just sort of make that puree, blend it until it's nice and smooth. So I'm just gonna do this with my 2 persimmons and then blend it all up in my little mini blender. So once you've got your persimmon puree, you can just make sure it's completely smooth, and then you can go ahead and take it out of the blender and just kind of roughly measure about 1 cup. And then after you do that, I'm gonna mix the baking soda into the persimmon and then set it aside. This kind of turns it into a solid. And then we're gonna go starting with the dry ingredients. I'm gonna mix in my flour, some 5 spice powder, and then I'm going to mix in some salt as well as some baking powder. And then we can set that aside as well after we mix that. So moving on to the wet ingredients, after you've mixed together your dry ingredients, your persimmon puree should have hardened a little bit like so. And so once it's hardened a little bit, you can go ahead and put in your eggs. And then after your eggs, you can put in your sugar. And then after our sugar, we've also got some oil going in. I'm using avocado oil, but you could use like any flavorless oil like grapeseed oil or coconut oil. And I just threw in some orange juice and some vanilla extract. And then I'm just taking the zest of an entire orange. You could just use the orange juice from the orange, honestly. I just had orange juice in my fridge, so that's why I used it. But yeah, so that would make together our wet ingredients. So just go ahead and mix that together, and it's totally fine if it turns out a little bit lumpy. Like, you're gonna have the little clumps of persimmon, but that's totally fine because it'll bake out eventually. So the next step we're gonna do is mix the wet ingredient mixture into the dry ingredient mixture. So I just made a well in the center. Go ahead and pour that in there, and then I'm just gonna whisk it together until it's all combined. So I just want to incorporate that evenly so there's no dry spots. And once that's all incorporated, I'm gonna go ahead and add the pecans that we toasted earlier. So this is where you would add your pecans, your walnuts, whatever nut you want to add. And once that's all mixed in, we're pretty much good to go. So we can go ahead and pour that into our prepared pan. So I've just cut out some parchment paper, and then I'm going to also rub some more avocado oil on the inside because I wanted to try to make the brown sugar or demerara sugar stick to the bottom and sides of the pan. So I didn't have demerara sugar, so I'm just using some brown sugar, but I think the only difference is demerara is a little bit more coarse. I could be wrong though, but yeah. And so I've just mixed that around the bottom of the pan. Tried to get it to stick to the sides. It didn't really stick, but that's probably on me. Just pouring the batter in. Honestly, it smelled really good, you guys, because of that 5 spice powder. And then for the last step, I'm just gonna cut the fuyu persimmons for the slices that go on top of the bread. So I'm just trying to cut some really thin slices here. Try to cut about maybe 6 to 8 slices if you can do that. And it's just gonna look really, really pretty on top. And just cut them a little bit thin. And then I just did them in sort of 2 rows of 2 columns of 2, if that makes sense, kind of overlapping a little bit. But you know, you could do any design you wanted, honestly. This is just what looked like she did on the cover, so that's what I tried to do. And lastly, just gonna sprinkle on some brown sugar on top so it can caramelize a little bit in the oven, and then we're good to go. So once it comes out of the oven, that's what it looks like. Honestly, smells really good, and slicing into it, oh my gosh, it's so fragrant, so moist, and the sugar coating on that pan makes it a little bit crispy, some golden brownness coming out. Really good. Alright guys, it's time to try the finished product, the persimmon bread. So I've cut it into slices, so I'm just gonna take a piece right here. It's super, super moist. This is what it looks like. It's a pretty dark colored bread. It smells, honestly, like it smells like pumpkin pie because of all those like Chinese 5 spices. It smells really good. It smells very fall vibes is what it smells like. So wow. Honestly, this is better than I thought. You know what? It's so hard to describe this taste. It's like nutmeggy, gingery. It's like pumpkin pie intensified is what it tastes like. And it's like really, really moist. Honestly, the persimmon flavor is not that strong in my opinion. But I do feel like it gives the bread like a nice, good texture. And actually, I quite like that the persimmon flavor is not that strong because I'm not the hugest fan of persimmon anyway. But it tastes really good. I would highly recommend making this if you have guests over too, because it looks really pretty. Like with the persimmons laid on top, it looks really beautiful, and I think it could be pretty impressive if you have some guests over. Overall, it's really good. It has like the crispy edges because of like the brown sugar, the demerara sugar that you line the pan with. So it's kind of got crispy edges. It's really good. I only put pecans in mine, but I can see how it would be really good if you added like a few more nuts just for like that texture. Let me try a little piece of the persimmon that we put on top. So here's like the top piece. Tastes like persimmon. I mean, it's good because it's a little bit caramelized and it has a little bit of that sugar on top, so it's pretty good. Yeah, I like this. It's a pretty unique bread in my opinion, so if you ever had guests over and you want to make something a little bit interesting, make this. I'm gonna try and make something a little bit harder next week, sort of upping the level of difficulty as we go along with these videos. But I would rate this like an 8 out of 10. It's pretty good. And I think I like it better than the banana bread that I made last week, so yeah. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one, and I'll see you later. Bye!